opinion show, and if you don't like it, it's okay. Feel free to share down below. But let me share our thoughts before you do. See, the government is back to work as of late of last week. Yay! And while I don't really care to comment on the successes or failure of the government, I do want to point out the similarities to what we witnessed during the shutdown to our industry, real estate.
Now, normally Washington's crazy antics don't really affect what you and I do every day professionally, but nowadays it does. Lucky for us, as you know, they pretty much control it all. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, USDA, and VA.
And on top of controlling the money, they control the rule makers now too. You know, the CFPB, the Center for Practicing Bullshit. Just kidding, CFPB, we don't want no trouble.
Anyways, back to the similarities. Over the past few weeks, we've witnessed dysfunction in Washington. And if dysfunction wasn't bad enough, we've witnessed outright hatred from both parties.
I mean, it's okay to disagree, but I watched the coverage quite a bit, and these elected officials that run our country were saying some pretty nasty things about each other. I mean, it was clear that both sides really disliked each other.
What we saw, or are continuing to see, is a complete divide in Washington with very little middle ground.
It's like Washington is manic or bipolar right now. These guys are all over the place. Now, how does that affect us professionally? Obviously, it affects us personally, but how does that affect us professionally?
Well, one, the shutdown slowed things down a bit. We already witnessed that. Heck, may have even caused a delay with one of your closings. But let's dig a little deeper. What else seems manic or bipolar right now?
Well, how about Fannie Mae's approach at lending? This is what I've witnessed and have been working in and around for quite some time. They seem to take like an old school gang approach. If you're one of them, you are in and you are protected. And if you are not, well, it's pretty hard to get in.
See, on one side, Fannie has the HARP program that helps underwater homeowners. We all like it and think it makes sense, and it's helped quite a few different people. It appears, though, that Fannie Mae has loosened up their guidelines even more on this program.
Yep, we have a friend working on one of these loans right now, and it was approved with an 80% debt-to-income ratio. 80%. Now, the normal maximum approved DTI, if you don't know, is about half of that. Now, we can argue all day long if that truly is a good loan for the borrower to stay in, but we won't. I want to focus on the overall approach.
So this borrower is in the gang, so to speak. They already belong to Fannie, so they loosened up the guidelines to help them lower their rate, and most likely won't even require an updated appraisal to find out what the property's actually worth.
Again, one could say they're only delaying the inevitable with an upside-down house and an 80% DTI, but we won't go there. Regardless, remember this, if you're in the gang, you're taken care of. Now let's move on.
On the purchase side of things, if Fannie's selling one of their foreclosed homes, they typically offer the program called HomePath. This allows a buyer to purchase a property with no appraisal and as little as 3% down. And again, it does not require an appraisal.
Why would they do that? Well, because the home itself is in the gang, so to speak. They loosened up the guidelines to help one of their own. After all, no appraisal, no mortgage insurance to protect my asset. Sign me up. Where do I lend my own money on that? I mean, I want a piece of that action. It seems solid to me. Okay, back to my manic point about Washington and how that affects us.
We just talked about how easy it is to refinance or purchase if you're in the Fannie Mae gang. But what if you're not?
Well, if you're not, you have to abide by all the new QM rules, which are not, by the way, 80% debt-to-income ratios and no appraisals.
This is where we get manic.
On the one hand, Fannie will go completely out of their way to refi or sell one of their houses. And I get why, so you don't have to say it down below. But don't you think it's a complete reversal for those who are not in the gang?
I mean, if you're not in the gang and you want to use a Fannie Mae product to purchase a home, which is typically a fixed rate loan, you have to basically walk through fire to get it.
You know, bank statements, pay stubs, tax returns, W-2s. I mean, you have to have assets and low debt to income ratios, and God forbid you don't cross a T or dot an I in your closing paperwork because they'll reject it and send it right back to you, even if the borrower has 20% down and it's the safest loan out there. My point is this. Washington's ethics and manic behavior is bad enough for politics and lawmaking, but because they took over our industry, we are now seeing this manic, bipolar behavior in our industry, thus making our lending approach and real estate cycles manic as well.
Seriously, real estate used to be the safest bet out there with slow-moving hot and cold market curves. Now, it's like a Richter scale in California. It's hot and then it's cold, very rapid, unhealthy movements, and I don't think it's on accident either.
You know the golden rule, those who have the gold makes the rules, and Washington has the gold and they are making the rules, and it shows. On the one side, we have incredibly loose standards with no appraisals and unhealthy DTIs, and on the other side, we have new, stricter rules with lower DTIs and incredibly strict guidelines.
Maybe there's a better, more balanced approach we could take in our industry, and maybe maybe there's a better, more balanced approach we could take in Washington.
I used to say there's only one group more powerful than the banksters and the politicians, the people. But I stopped because I noticed that people didn't care too much and they were a bit complacent. But I think people have finally had enough of Washington, and I hope you as realtors and loan officers and appraisers have also had enough of Washington's rulemaking in our industry.
One thing I know for certain is none of this will change if we are all complacent. That goes for Washington and our industry.
Be heard, and let's finally do something about this. Let us know your thoughts down below, good or bad, and we'll see you guys next week.